Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. Today I'm Bancroft being joined by a whole cast of individuals and a newcomer to the channel, which he's been on the channel before in the past, but not in the commentary section. And that order would be Jimmy, Jake, Scotty, welcome aboard, and like always, Fluff.
Howdy.
What's going on, y'all?
Hello.
What up, people?
And today we have a matchup of Xeno Gogeta versus Syn Shenron. With that being said, click those buttons, they're there for a reason, right? Alright, cool, thanks for clicking them. And guys, take it away.
So, Fluff here, talking about the Gogeta Xeno deck. This isn't very different from the list that I profiled. The big thing that I changed was we run best of one formats at our locals. So I included some best of one tech. Like you can see the Deborah in my hand for anticipated hand control. And then I also finally got a hold of some of the 5-drop Demigrite Overwhelms. So I included a couple of those. But otherwise, the deck is generally the same. I trimmed down a lot of the fat of some of the unnecessary things. And a lot of the things right now that feel unnecessary in the list are just to kind of fill space until Thwarting the Dark Empire comes out or it becomes readily available to us.
I do have a question about a lot of the best of one tech you threw in.
Yeah.
In matchups where they weren't relevant, did you ever feel clogged by them?
Not really. The Deborahs were a free 5k combo, so at worst, I could use them to feed my drop area to set up overwhelm plays, or like I just did there, where I knew that it really wouldn't be relevant against the Shenron matchup. I just used it as an auto charge target. If I saw it got charged. I would say the more irritating thing about this night is while I didn't change the number of Union fusions that I included within the deck, most games all my Union fusions or my super combos got warped. That was more of the bigger hindrance than anything else.
That RNG coming around to you.
Yeah, it did. But it was fine. Like, it came out okay. Scotty was using a variation of my Syn Shenron control build, and he didn't quite have all the cards, so he kind of included some of his own personal check choices into it. And Scotty, how have you liked Syn Shenron since you started playing it?
So I've been playing Syn Shenron since we started the Rise of the Unison block. That is the only deck I have touched. And I've really grown to enjoy it. I like what it did before, and then when they started adding the new stuff, I really enjoyed it. And I actually really like this build. I like the way it plays, the way it just moves throughout the game. But yeah, that's Fluff said I have been using his build. I did make some tech choices because there were some cards that I don't have, unfortunately. I swapped out the Unisons. And I run a few extra negates, which does not help, I promise.
And you had taken somewhat of a hiatus from the game. And this is what your second time playing a proper tournament, if I'm correct, like since you got back from the hiatus?
Yeah, second time, like you said, I took a major hiatus just because I've got some other things, school and COVID really took a hit. So yeah, this is my second tournament back, and I felt comfortable playing this deck completely. Only my second time out, and I believe this was actually the first tournament with this deck, because the week before I was playing the original Shenron build that I had.
Yeah, I remember when everyone was talking about what they were going to play before the event. I remember you said you were going to be playing Shadow Dragons again, and honestly, you were one of the matchups I was most worried about, and actually ended up running into you later in the tournament.
Yeah, and I remember that because we did play the week before. Jake was actually the first match I played from my hiatus. So that was pretty awesome because me and Jake never actually get to play.
It's very rare.
It's very rare. I think in what, the 2 to 3 years we've played Dragon Ball, has it been 2 years almost?
Almost 3.
Almost 3. Me and Jake have played like 4 matches. So it was really awesome to get to be my first match to be Jake, and then get to play my Shadow Dragon deck again. That was really fun. It was just a fun thing to do because I didn't get to play anybody or see anybody during this little hiatus thing I took.
And Fluff just having a explosive turn with Gogeta. Like,
this was one of my most explosive turn 2s. And the thing that sucks was I didn't have any Union Fusion pieces in hand. I think I have another of the 6-drop that's currently on field, but it requires that the opponent have 2 energy. And I think this weekend I went first every game. So I wasn't putting him out until turn 3. And if I had been able to put him out on turn 2, I would have been able to generate a lot more advantage. So there, I just utilized the Unison to be able to free play him out, and then overwhelm into the trunks, get some draws, move through my deck, set up my drop area for another future potential play. And that was really all I had. I really wish that I had been able to like take a draw off of a Union Fusion or something like that, but I can't complain because it is one of the most explosive turn 2s this deck has had.
And putting Syn Shenron, I believe it's at 3 life. I don't think there's an extra one hiding in there somewhere. But putting him at 3 life is kind of putting Shadow Dragons in a weird spot where it can awaken. It can awaken much faster than normally would, but most of the time you would want to gain value off of the auto on the front side. Yeah. To get the quality of your cards or manage the quality of the cards, and instead of just drawing one every turn. So it really puts a Shadow Dragons player in an odd spot.
The scary part for me is that was a really hand resource intensive turn for me. So I know that I'm going to be low on hand count. I'm sitting at 6 life, so I've got 2 super combos in hand that are dead. But Scotty did not combo. I think he comboed once in that entire wave of attacks. And so now he's sitting on this fat stacked hand that I have to consider because he's most likely going to go up to his 30k in this turn. And then with his hand, I never get to kill it. It's just going to provide additional and recurrent value for him because of how large his hand is. Plus, when he does decide to awaken, he's going to draw 2. He's going to get a draw off the attack. Like, he's just got more and more play that he can do with this. So I knew that it was a risk for me going that hard. But I was more hoping that instead of him taking life, he would have been comboing cards out of his hand. So just him taking the life kind of took me aback, honestly.
You know, right. I can tell you, I remember this game very well. Probably had the worst night of my life. I didn't have really everything I had in my hand. I couldn't combo off. I felt that I needed it in some way. And that's because I didn't really understand Shadow Dragons, the new Shadow Dragon hand control that I was playing as extensively as I should have, because you wanted me to combo off. I should have been comboing things off, but at the same time I wasn't. So it was kind of it was an awkward situation. Because I was trying to play the deck one way and I should have been playing it a completely different way.
Yeah. And like we are playing, it is our store championship, and I'm trying to be supportive as the opponent and also trying to help you learn the deck too. And after the event, you and I got to sit down and I got to like kind of walk you through some of the deck's bigger brained plays, as it were. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that gives you a little bit more, because I feel like you were almost participating in a handicap where you had just finished this version of the deck. You really hadn't had a chance to test it out. And I feel bad about that.
Like, you should never feel bad about that. You should always play cutthroat, in my opinion, no matter what you're doing.
Well, I do.
And that, never feel bad. Feel bad for me because I shouldn't have. You should feel bad that I took a hiatus, because honestly, if I hadn't taken a hiatus and I was able to play Shadow Dragons for the last year and a half or so. I think I would have done a lot better with it.
The deck is really good, and it has a ton of potential.
I will say one of my I wouldn't say it was a misplay. If you'll notice in my energy, it's a Vegeta Final Flash. Should not have charged that. 100% should not have charged that.
Yeah, that's rough. But also depending on the quality of cards that were in your opening hand, that might have been the best at the time.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact hand I had at the beginning, but charging that Vegeta Final Flash, because I do remember the end game of this, was just super rough. Because it would have helped in the long run. I think.
It's a lot easier to look at these retrospectively and be like, oh wow, I shouldn't have done that. I could have got the game by doing this, or I would have had a more handily win if I kept this card in my hand. And that's one of the great things about being able to do this. And I encourage people watching to record themselves playing with their friends or at their locals, and then watch those back and learn from that.
Purposefully spread your hand out. Like, you notice that I'll do that where I'll flip through the cards and then spread the hand out. But it gives me the opportunity to review. Like, I can see what's in my hand there. So when I'm sitting here talking about this, if I make a play and that wasn't the optimal play, I can take mental note of that and maybe comment on it in the video. And you'll notice that I strategically do that when I'm on camera, specifically for that reason, because I know that I'm going to get that retrospective look at the game. I do know, so this is not an excuse. This is me admitting to the fact that I am a person and I do make mistakes. So there, I thought I had another one of the one-drop Gokus in the warp to play off that Gogeta, and I end up making 2 minor misplays over the course of this turn. And one is more so minor than the other, and I'll call the other one out when I make it. But again, I get the Pycon up to 3 markers on it, which means I'm going to get to play another Gogeta for free out of my warp, or bump the power of the Vegeta in my hand up.
Yeah,
I think that was kind of a theme at our locals this week. It was shop championships, but it's also our first real tournament with set 13 cards. People having proper set 13 decks built and using these new cards in their list. So there was a lot of misplay based off of either trying to learn what your opponent's doing and also what the hell is going on in the combo area. I just blinked and
so the big thing that's happening is I'm trying to fill my drop area for Overwhelm. So here I activate that. It gives me my 5 because I know that I'm going to use 2. But I was also digging for specific cards in my hand because I know what's coming in Shadow Dragons if I can't steal the game here. This is misplay number 2. I got the 2 effects on Demigrop mixed up. So on play, I asked Scotty to warp a card out of his hand, and then realized retroactively that he should have warped the Syn Shenron, which would have allowed Scotty to draw 2 and play his 1-star ball back out. So that is my mistake. That is, that's on me. I don't know that it overall changes the ending of this game or changes how the game pans out after that. But it is definitely something that I feel the need to apologize for, because I know the Demigod card, but I was so caught up in trying to help Scotty throughout his match, and my brain was honestly a little scattered in multiple different directions, and there's no one at fault but myself, and I actually caught it somewhere in this turn.
I mean, that goes back to what I was mentioning about it, where everybody was playing new cards. We were helping each other both learn our own decks and helping other people learn what we were playing. In this case, you're walking through Scotty with the new Shadow Dragons. So it's easy to get mixed up on what card effects do. And when you see my gameplay video, if I don't know when this is coming out, but you'll see the exact same thing happened in my matchup with Matt.
Yeah. And it does happen sometimes. I mean, and I guess that, like, we're all pretty hard on ourselves. Like, Jake is pretty hard on himself. Jimmy, you're pretty hard on yourself. I'm pretty hard on myself when I make a mistake. So, and there, what happened was, for some reason, I thought I had it in my head that when the 4-drop Shenron is played, the card that it targets can't restand, but it's just that card can't attack. So Scotty was kind enough to say, like, hey, that card is still inactive.
Yes. Because you're not the only person who has thought that. I think it's come across in like literally in the last 2 weeks that I've played, because that's the only 2 weeks I've played in person. It's like, this card can restand, right? And I'm like, yes, you just can't attack. You get the active, but you cannot attack.
Shadow Dragons are unanimously a wall of text on pretty much every card. The Oceanus is a wall of text. The Omega Shenron's a wall of text. Syn is a wall of text. The 4-drop Syn is a wall of text. Haze Shenron is a wall of text. It's part of their card. It's a part of that archetype.
Even just the Dragon Balls themselves, the cracked ones, it's just so much you have to remember. It's like when the 9-drop goes away, you have to remember that 9-drop pops, you draw 2, the 1-drop comes back out, and it's like, and it's just so much to remember with the Shadow. You have to remember literally so many things with the Shadow Dragon deck.
Yeah, and there I am recalling that effect. And getting it, like, realizing, like, it dawning on me that I had misplayed that Demigra, because I not only ripped you out of a draw, but I ripped myself out of a draw, and I'm kind of kicking myself for that, because I know Shadow Dragons, and the likelihood that you play Cell this turn is incredibly high, and I'm like, crap, how much would I love to have an additional card in my hand right now?
It's incredibly high, but not as incredibly high as you would think it would be. Because I'll tell you, this is only the second time I've ever ran Xenocell, and I didn't fully understand the card, even though that card has been out for very many sets, since set, what is it, 10? Is that right, Jimmy? Is that when? Yeah, so, like, it's just a card I've never really touched, and so, like, trying to learn that wall of text, along with all the other walls of text that I'm trying to learn, was just like, okay, it's Quad Strike. That's what I get out of that card. But now that
all the card text says is just smack bitches. That's all it says.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's an accurate.
Just a quick reminder. Turn 3? So if you're going to turn 4, even if he Xenocelled that early on, it wouldn't have affected your hand.
It would not have affected my hand, no. But the ability to combo out of a 40,000 compared to the size of his hand was not happening.
And Fluff's already spent 3 super combos.
Yeah. And now I'm under Dormant, so I'm like, well, crap. All right, now I'm under Flying Nimbus. I walked into Flying Nimbus. Because in my Shadow Dragon list, I don't run Flying Nimbus, so I wasn't worried about it. I'm like, he's not running Flying Nimbus. And then he hit me with Flying Nimbus. And I was like, well, that felt real good. And I deserved that one for presuming.
Here's the thing, though. When I built this deck, because I built it the week before I came back, I used Fluff's build on the channel. And at the time, it was running Flying Nimbus.
Yeah, I think I ended up cutting it out. Yeah. After that, when I started, like, refining the deck and turning it into, like, a truly modern Syn Shenron deck.
Yeah, you don't need Flying Nimbus. I can attest to that, because when we played later on that night, when we really sat down and played again, I didn't need it. It's nice to have, but you don't need it.
You don't need it. You run so many blockers and so many options for ending the game fairly early that having Nimbus is almost inconsequential. And the deck is truly control enough that it can pretty much survive almost anything your opponent can do.
Yeah.
So here I know, like, I've got the opportunity to get in and swing, so I'm just going to go ahead and combo out.
Yeah, at this point, I pretty much know there's like nothing I can do. I've got 1 energy. Unfortunately, I didn't have another Flying Nimbus. I saw 1 Flying Nimbus the entire night at the shop. Yeah. That was the other thing. There are so many, like, and that's the other thing why you don't need it, is because you don't see them enough because you've got
everything searches the dragons.
Yeah, everything searches the dragons, and you've got almost 45 dragons in the deck.
Yeah.
So like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. I see my super combos more than I see my flying nimbuses.
And I would much rather have a Vegeta's Final Flash, where like in that situation where I'm not expecting Vegeta's Final Flash, and instead of doing Nimbus, you wait for me to combo out on that double strike, and then you just drop Vegeta's Final Flash.
Right.
And then you only take 1 damage after that.
Right. And that goes back to, again, what I was saying earlier, where I charged that Vegeta Final Flash. That was the only Vegeta Final Flash I saw. So I'm actually going to cut I might run 1 Flying Nimbus just because, again, needle in a haystack, why not? And put an extra Vegeta Final Flash because I feel like that's more useful to me than a Flying Nimbus is.
I really like Vegeta's Final Flash like a 2 of in that deck. 3 is probably too cloggy, but 2 is right.
I think running it at a 3, I could see it being cloggy, but at the same time, I'm like, if I just have it again, if I do hit 1, it's something to keep in hand, or I can just charge it off and not have to worry about charging a dragon or something like that.
It's not terrible on offense either.
No,
yeah,
not at all.
No, getting that, I think it's what, plus 15k. Like it's really nice.
And then it negates the card skill. I mean, it's super good.
Yeah.
And, for me, Gogeta Xeno, still probably my favorite deck in the format right now. Like, I, of course, still love blue, still love yellow. But Gogeta Xeno is so fun. It's got such a branching play style that if your opponent cuts off one of the heads, you have an additional 2 to run off of.
It is literally the Hydra.
Yeah, it very much so the Hydra.
And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in today. Hope you all enjoyed. Like I said earlier, there's buttons. Feel free to click them. Let's start with Scotty on last words.
Thanks, guys, for watching, and appreciate y'all.
Jake?
If you want to win, you have to practice. And Scotty, I'm excited to see what you do with Shadow Dragons in the future.
Jimmy?
I have nothing to say to people that aren't champion, just saying. So, continue on.
I have no idea what that means. Fluff, lead us out.
I am definitively a champion. And also, surely, not everyone was Kung Fu fighting. Read your cards, know your plays, let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and fluff out.